Great, thank you. And indeed, I would like to give you an introduction to do ASO in campaigns via the example of the Adidas Running app. The Adidas Running app is an app developed by Adidas Runtastic, and it's an Austrian-based studio that in 2015 got acquired by Adidas, and in 2019 we rebranded to Adidas Running. If you were here last year, I recorded together with Jessica and Andy a podcast about for Mobile Grow Nightmares exactly about that rebranding, so go and check it out. But to give you also a bit of an idea of the numbers that I'm talking about, we had quite some millions installs and registration throughout the years, and in 2022, our users ran more than 2 billion kilometers, consuming more than 345 million calories, and in the biggest campaign that we had in 2022, we had 1.9 million joiners. So let me introduce very quickly the concept of campaigns. Campaigns here are certain marketing activation that every single company goes through, and they have a defined start in time and end in time. And for denomination, they are a bit, let's say, not exactly going along some ASO effort. So it can be a subscription promotion, it can be a sustainability event, it can be whatever you think that you can increase your brand, your conversion, and so on. And that's why we need to take a couple of steps back first. If we actually start to think about the factors that influence ASO, I try to map it in a word cloud, right? So ASO, as we know it, is always a bit about things that do have an impact a bit more uncertain, a bit more in the long term, and so on. But as soon as we start to talk about campaigns, we need to reflect this also in what we are going to actually change on our side. For example, if keywords, screenshots, subtitle, and so on are very important in ASO as we know it, in campaigns the picture slightly changes. And indeed, we are starting to look a bit more towards certain figures like Apple Search Ads, other acquisition channels, CSL, CPPs, and especially in app events and promotional content. And this gives you already an idea of where my talk is going. And indeed, I prepared a 3-step guide on how to move it through ASO in campaigns. The first one is spreading. And spreading here, it's pretty obvious what we want to do. This is a great featuring that we had with Apple in the Today tab for a campaign that we have live in this moment, which is called Move for the Planet. It's a sustainability campaign, but obviously the goal of spreading here is basically reaching as many people as you can, right? Engaging existing users, maybe starting to think about retargeting, and especially also there is a third goal that people tend to forget about it, but it was mentioned also before by other colleagues. It's about supporting the always-on ASO initiatives. Having new content and refresh content in the store, it's very important. And how you do it? Obviously, EAE or like promotional content, but even the promotional text, that it's very important for what the user read. And Apple Search Ads or other branded ads or featurings and so on. To give you an idea of how many of those events we have pulled, because it's not one, it's a series of things that you need to do in order to start to figure it out how this ASO campaign works. In the last 18 months, we published around 27 in-app events and promotional content. And to give you an idea of how this had an effect on our spreading, you can see how the share of absolute impression changed across the months. And there was a bit of a change going on for Google for promotional content beginning this year. Either we became really good at it or something changed. But obviously, the spreading is not the only thing, right? Because we are not here only for reach and impression. We are here to converting at the very end. And conversion, the main goal, well, here it's obviously downloads, right? And you do have all the other goals, download the funnel and so on, but the first one you want as a conversion. And here I put some facts on how our conversion rate looks like throughout all these in-app events. You see that it is something that I wouldn't consider too bad, but I also wouldn't consider too good. Like there is a good interval, and especially as soon as you plug some paid money behind it, things slightly changes. So this is very, very interesting. On top, apparently throughout the last 4 months, 4 or 5 months, in-app events have started to, either we became better at it, but have started to convert a bit better than what it used to be. So like that's really an interesting takeaway. And obviously, when we talk about conversion, we are also talking about CPP and CSLs, right? Here we are, the impact is a bit questionable on our side. Here you see an example of when we targeted gender-based. And maybe it's because of what Thomas was saying about the addressability, maybe for other reason. The impact we didn't really see much if we target some segment of the cohort. But as soon as we start to go a bit more into some specific topics, for example, sustainability, like the Move for the Planet campaign that we have right now, and we put it together with the Today tab, the cost per tab is actually diminishing quite a bit. Still, and that's why I'm saying that it is a bit questionable, at least on our side, the cost per acquisition is still a bit high. And here it comes also another catch. So what if we just mix and match everything? We put also search keywords and search tab and so on. The result is a question mark. So if anybody in the audience has managed to crack this, come and talk with me. Let's share some insights, because that's really an interesting thing. Last but not least, reporting. And reporting here, it's not about what you do in terms of optimization. Reporting here is something that goes beyond that. It is something that it's for your senior leadership team. And it is the value of your effort as an ASO manager, or the value of your effort as ASO in a campaign. Because this is actually, I just put down 2 quick formulas, which seems complex written, but at the same time, they are quite, let's call it a return on investment of your ASO effort. So you just take the cost per acquisition that you have averaged throughout the month, you multiply it by the installs and so on, or that you actually got, or even the incremental that you got from featurings. Obviously, you need to have baselines. And then you can actually report this toward the cost that you actually have been through. This is something that you can propose to your management team and so on, in order to really unlock even more understanding of what the ASO world. You merge the two together and you have the value of the ASO campaigns, the ASO in campaigns. This is something that not everybody does, because there is not really an understanding from top down and so on about what's the job here and all the effort that goes through. But the more you educate people and your team leads and so on, or the company owners and so on, about the value of ASO, the more possibility you have to get into it. I'm perfectly on time for getting toward the key takeaways. And here, the first one is that ASO campaigns, ASO in campaigns, is very different from ASO as we know it. It's complementary, but it's very different. The first one is that you need to start to thinking about spreading. And spreading here, it is all about going through a lot of in-app events, a lot of promotional content. It helps a lot. And they are actually working, because it keeps the store fresh, and it keeps also our app image really fresh. Then it's about conversion. CPPs and CSLs are kinda questionable, at least for us. So that's a question mark so far. But then reporting, it's all about showing the value of your ASO campaign effort to people that do not know exactly what the value of ASO is. A quick bonus tip is that the more you do, the more you learn. And that's why when I'm saying like that you really need to plan a roadmap of promotional content and in-app events or CPPs and so on, that's ultra important in order to keep the things going and the learning coming. That's it. I would like to thank you very much. That's my LinkedIn profile. And by the way, if you want to know a bit more about ASO in Adidas Running and knowing a bit of the internal data, I'm actually currently hiring for an ASO manager. So go on our careers page. And thank you very much for having me.